All right, P.3a was talking about adding and subtracting and multiplying. When you add and subtract polynomials, guys, when you add and subtract, you have to have the same last name, right? Your variable, exponents, all this stuff stays the same. You're just adding. When you multiply, that's when you rewrite the base and the exponents change. So today we're going to just do a bunch of different kinds of multiplying. These are called special products. They're special patterns. You don't need to know. God bless you. You do not need to memorize any of these. Well, yes, you do. I'm sorry. You have to memorize this one, and this one. That's sum and difference of cubes. We'll go over it a little bit, but don't stress too much. What is important is that you understand that these are special patterns. If you recognize the ones that I just put here in blue, great. It makes your life a little easier, but if you don't recognize it, it's no big deal. You can still multiply these things together. This is called the difference of perfect squares. Notice a squared and b squared. There's a minus sign in the middle. The word difference means subtraction. So when you go to factor it, you'll have terms out of the same, but your signs in the middle are different. These are called perfect squared trinomials. Trinomials because there's three terms. And if it has three terms and the ends are perfect squares and there's a middle thing, we'll talk about it. I'm just showing you. Then you have two of the same parentheses. So if you recognize, oh, this is one of those special cases, great. If not, just multiply like you guys know how to do. We'll talk about this in a minute. What do you notice about number one? They both have an X. They both have a 3. What are the signs in the middle? They're different. This would be the difference of perfect squares. Your answer to this is x squared minus 9. But if you don't immediately recognize that, guys, just FOIL. What's x times x? X squared. What's x times negative 3? Negative 3x. What's 3 times x? Plus 3x. What's 3 times negative 3? Minus 9. What happens in the middle here with your positive and negative 3x? They cancel out, so it's just x squared minus 9. When you have two parentheses that have the same terms, the a and the b, the first and second, same exact, but the signs in the middle are different, that's what's going to happen. But again, if you don't recognize that, no big deal. Just multiply. Do you guys recognize you have the same terms here, right? 2x in the front, 5 in the back. Your signs are different. So what should happen is the middle terms should cancel. What's 2x times 2x? 4x squared. 2x times negative 5. Negative 10x. 5 times 2x plus 10x. Negative 5 and a positive 5. Minus 25. And then look what happens in the middle. You have a negative 10x and a positive 10x. What happens? They cancel. So you have 4x squared minus 25. Again, if you recognize the pattern, you have a little less work to do. But if you don't, it's not a big deal at all. All right, same thing happens here. You just have an extra letter. The front one has an A, the back one has a B. Who cares? Go ahead and FOIL. What's 4A times 4A? 16A squared. What's 4A times negative 5? You have negative 20, and then what do you do at the end of B? You just stick them together, right? So now we have 5B and 4A. Positive, stick them together. And then 5 times negative 5 is going to give me negative 25. And what's B times B? B squared. Good. So what happens here in the middle, ladies and gents, with your negative 20AB and your positive 20AB? So you're left with 16A squared minus 25B squared. Just because when you have letters, you have more than one, generally just put them in alphabetical order. But you could have left it as BA. Just understand, it's a good question. If you have 5AB and then you have a 5BA, notice those are the same. Same letters, and it's the same power. They just aren't in the same order. So I just always write them in alphabetical order just so they look the same. All right, let's look at number 4. Same thing. First term's the same, second term's the same, signs in the middle are different. What should happen to your middle terms when we FOIL? They should cancel. All right, so 3x squared times 3x squared. 3 times 3 is 9. That gives me x to the what? 4th, good. 3x squared, and then negative 4y. Negative 12x squared y. Again, I put the x first just because in the alphabet it comes first. 4y times 3x is a positive 12x squared y. And then what's positive 4y and a negative 4y? Minus 16 what? Y squared. What happens here in the middle, guys? It cancels, which is what we needed it to do. So we have 9x to the fourth minus 16y squared. Again, if you don't recognize the pattern, it doesn't matter. Just go ahead and multiply. You'll get the same answer. All right, here's a very common mistake that people make. Algebra 2 Honors is making this common mistake. They see an exponent on the outside, and they say, oh, I distribute it. Are you allowed to distribute across plus and minus signs? No. That is not what that says. That does not say to distribute that too. When you have something that is raised to the second power, how many times are you multiplying it by itself? Twice. So what this is telling you is to take 6x minus 5 and multiply it by itself. Now, this is another special pattern, which I'll show you. If you see it, great. If you don't, no big deal. But when we FOIL this, guys, what's 6x times 6x? 36x squared. Good. What's 6x and a negative 5? Negative 30x. Negative 5 and 6x. Negative 30x. Negative 5 and negative 5. Positive 25. What happens here in the middle? You add them. They don't cancel, guys. It doubles. You have 36x squared. What's a negative 30 and a negative 30? Negative 60x plus 25. So when you have the same terms in the parenthesis and the signs are different, when you multiply, the middle terms are going to cancel. When you have the same parenthesis, same sign in the middle term doubles. Yes, sir.
I want to be negative 60x squared.
No, because you're just adding like terms. So it's negative 30 and negative 30. You keep the last name the same. So let's look at this. Well, how is this telling us we should write our problem? 5 minus 8x, how many times? Twice. Good job. So FOIL. When you have the same parenthesis 2 times, guys, the middle term is not going to cancel out. So 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times negative 8 is minus 40x. Negative 8 times 5 is minus 40x. And negative 8 times negative 8 is positive 64, and you have x squared. So again, what happens here in the middle? So 25, what's negative 40 and negative 40? Minus 80x plus 64x squared. How could I rewrite that so it looks a little prettier? 64x squared. What? Perfect. Minus 80x plus 25. Just write it in standard form so it's in order. So you don't have to, no. If you wanted to try to do this without actually FOILing it out, what you end up doing is you square that term, you square that term, you multiply these two together times 2. So it'd be 64x squared plus 48x plus 9. You guys are like, what? If that doesn't make sense to you guys, write it out. You have 8x plus 3 times 8x plus 3. When you FOIL, what's 8x times 8x? 64x squared. What's 8x times 3? 24x. What's 3 times 8x? 24x. What's 3 times 3? 9. And what happens here in the middle? What do I do with 24x and 24x? I add them. So I have 64x squared plus 48x plus 9. You square the first term, Square the last term, and then you multiply the first times the second times 2. That'll work every time. God bless you. Let's just go through it the math way. 3x plus 4y times what? 3x plus 4y. You have the same parenthesis, multiply by itself 2 times. So we're going to go ahead and FOIL. 3 times 3 is 9. X times x is x squared. 3x times 4y. 3 times 4 is 12. And I'm just going to write the letters xy. 4y times 3x, I'm going to say plus. 4 times 3 is 12. And again, write the letters xy. And then 4y times 4y is going to give me 16 what? Y squared. Good. And then what's going to happen here in the middle? You're going to add them. So 9x squared plus 12 gives me 24 xy's plus 16 y squared. Okay. What does this mean? How many parentheses do I have? I have 3, okay? This does not change anything, guys. There is a pattern from that first page. It's very hard to memorize. All this means is I have x minus 5 how many times? 3 times. This problem is difficult because you have to be organized. Can you multiply 3 binomials together at one time? No. You have to FOIL 2 together and then multiply the other one in. So I always just rewrite the first one, x minus 5, and then I FOIL the second 2. What's x times x? X squared. What's x times negative 5? Negative 5x. What's negative 5 times x? Negative 5x. And then what's negative 5 times negative 5? Plus 25. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to rewrite my x minus 5 out here, and I'm going to combine like terms. So I have x squared. What happens here in the middle? I add them, so negative 10x plus 25. And now all we do is multiply again. You're going to take the x and distribute it to everything in the second parenthesis, and then the negative 5 and distribute it to everything in the second parenthesis. Just becomes a long problem. So let's go. X times x squared is x what? Cubed. X times negative 10x? Negative 10x squared. X times 25 plus 25x. Good. And now we're going to do the same thing with negative 5. So negative 5 times x squared is negative 5x squared. Negative 5 times negative 10 is plus 50, and then you have an x. And then negative 5 times 25 is minus 125. And then the last thing we need to do in a problem like this is to combine what? Combine like terms. So I'm going to write it up here. So I have x cubed. Anything else have an x cubed? No. So I have a negative 10x squared and a negative 5x squared. Gives me negative 15x squareds. Positive 25 and a positive 50 gives me how much? Make money. 75, good. 75, whoops, 75x. And then I have minus at the end, what? 125. The hardest thing about that is just staying organized. You're welcome to use my color pencils and stuff and just try to be as organized as possible. But do understand, guys, that does not mean you distribute the 3 to the 2 terms. What that means is how many parentheses do I have? 3. I'm multiplying them by each other. So 6 minus 4x times 6 minus 4x times 6 minus 4x. I always like to just rewrite the first one and FOIL the second 2 together. Take your time. What is 6 times 6? It's not 12, guys. What's 6 times 6? 36. What is 6 times negative 4x? Minus 24x. Good. What's negative 4x times 6? Minus 24x. Negative 4x and negative 4x. Plus 16x squared. Rewrite your first parenthesis. Combine like terms. If you want to switch it around, you can, if you guys would like to. If you want to just leave it like it is, that's fine too. So 36, what's 24 and 24? So minus 48x plus 16x squared. Now this problem becomes hard or a pain in the butt because the numbers get big. Don't get hung up on the numbers. We'll go first times first. What's 36 times 6? Anybody? 216, okay. 6 times negative 48. 6 times 48, what is that? 288, yep, so minus 288x, and then what's 16 times 6? Plus 96x squared. Now we're going to take our negative 4x. 36 times 4, it's going to give me negative 144x. 48 times 4 is going to give me, negative times a negative is a positive 192x squared. And then 16 times 4, negative 64, what? X cubed, all right? Let's write this in standard form. What's the highest exponent you see? Cubed. So write your negative 64x cubed first. Then we have x squares. I have a negative 96, I'm sorry, positive 96 and a positive 192. What does that give you? 288x squared. And I have a negative 288 and a negative 144. Gives me negative 432x. And then just your positive 216. The hardest part about that problem is the size of the numbers. I understand that. All right, let's do number 11. Let's do this one a little quicker. Let's see if we can increase our fluency a little bit. So 5x plus 3, how many times do I write that? 3 times. Again, we're going to do the same thing every time. I'm going to rewrite that first parenthesis because I'm going to FOIL that in later. Let's FOIL these two together. 5 times 5 is going to give me 25x squared. 5x times 3, 15x. 3 times 5, another 15x. 3 times 3. Good. Rewrite that first parenthesis. Combine like terms. 25x squared plus, what's 15 and 15? 30. Good. 30x plus 9. And then what do I do again? What do I do with 5x? Distribute it to everything. Good. What do I do with the 3? Distribute it to everything. And then I combine like terms. These problems are long, but they're not crazy hard. 5x times 25x. That gives me 125x what? Cubed. Very good. 5x times 30. 150. And I have x squared. I hear you. And then 5x times 9. 45x. All right. 25 times 3. Think money. 75x squared. Good. 3 times 30. 90x. Good. And 3 times 29. 27. And then lastly, what are we going to do? Combine like terms. Great. So I have a 125x cubed. Nothing else has cubes. I have a 150 and 75. $1.50 plus 75 cents. How much? 225. Good. So plus 225 x squared. 45 and 90. One, how much? 135x? It's just the first power. There you go. And then you have plus 27. I have x plus 4y. How many times? 3 times. So we're going to rewrite that first parenthesis and then FOIL. X times x is x squared. X times 4y, just 4xy. 4y times x, just another 4xy. And then 4y times 4y is going to give me 16y squared. So let's rewrite our first parenthesis, x plus 4y, and then combine like terms, x squared plus, how many xy's do I have there in the middle? 8, good. Plus 16y squared. And then we do it all over again. X times x squared is x cubed. X times 8xy is just plus 8. X what? X squared y. Good. X times 16y squared is just going to give me plus 16xy squared. Again, if you don't write it in that order, that's okay. I just personally like it to be in alphabetical order. So now I'm going to take my 4y. So 4y times x squared is plus 4x squared y. 4y times 8xy, 4 times 8 is plus 32. I have 1x and 2y, so xy squared. And then 4y and 16 is going to give me plus 64 and y cubed. What can you combine, guys? Can we combine this with this? What I have underlined, can we combine? And then can I combine this one with this one? That's where we have to be careful with the exponents. So x cubed is going to stay out here. I have 8 and 4 is going to give me 12 x squared y's. I have 16 and 32. What does that give me? 48? Yes? Okay, 48 xy squareds, and then plus 64y cubed. Everybody in here can do that problem. Everyone in here can multiply. Everyone in here can combine like terms. It's just a matter of really and truly taking your time, because if you get yourself jumbled, if you're trying to go too fast, or if you're not super organized, this could get messy. So you just have to really pay attention to what you're doing. All right, and then you have something like this. All right, these last two, and then we're done. And then your homework is just practicing multiplying. That's it. How would you start 13? There's no just one way to do it. But looking at this, what would you do for Evie? What would you do? I would too. I would go ahead and combine here first. Does anybody know what that's going to work out to be? X squared minus y squared. Same terms, different sign, middle sign's going to cancel. But again, if you don't see it, no biggie. FOIL it. X times x, x squared. X times negative y, minus xy. Y times x, plus xy. Y times y is going to give me negative y squared. And then what happens here in the middle? They cancel. So you have x squared minus y squared. And you're going to multiply that with x squared plus y squared. You're just going to FOIL again. What is x squared times x squared? X to the fourth. X squared times y squared. Plus x squared y squared. Negative y squared times x squared is minus x squared y squared. And then a negative y squared and a positive y squared. It's going to give me negative y to the fourth. Guys, what happens right here in the middle? It cancels out. So what are we left with? Just x to the fourth minus y to the fourth. Okay, again, same thing here. Do you guys recognize anything? Same terms, right? Just different signs in the middle. So let's think about this, and then we'll work it out. If I squared this term, what does that become? 36a to the fourth. You'd have to square the number and the letter. So now if I square this term, what does that become? 16b to the sixth. And what would the sign in the middle be? A minus. Perfect. If you see that, fantastic. If you don't, let's go ahead and FOIL it real quick. What is 6a squared times 6a squared? 36a to the fourth. What's 6a squared times 4b cubed? It's going to give me what? Six times 4 is, so plus 24a squared b cubed. Then I have negative 4b cubed and 6a squared is going to give me negative 24a squared b cubed. And then a negative 4b cubed and a positive 4b cubed is going to give you negative 16b to the 6th. Now, what is going to happen here with our middle terms? They're going to cancel, so you're just left with 36a to the 4th minus 16b to the 6th, which is what we said was going to happen from the beginning because we recognize the pattern. But if you don't, it's no big deal. You can always just write them down and FOIL it out. Thanks for waiting.